Welcome in for another edition of the Morning Espresso on the SDH Network. I'm Jason Longshore, and this is brought to you by Oglethorpe University, Atlanta's premier undergraduate learning experience and soccer powerhouse. Vancouver Whitecaps. They've become a soccer powerhouse, especially this season under Jesper Sorensen. They lead Miami 2-0 after the first leg of the Concacaf Champions Cup semifinals. Goals from Brian White and Sebastian Berhalter have given the Whitecaps that lead going to Fort Lauderdale next week. Jesper Sorensen's team, playing in front of 53,837 at BC Place, put on an incredible performance, keeping Miami off the board. Crowd was rocking the whole time. Brian White gets the goal, his 10th in 15 games for Vancouver in all competitions this season. That's your starter right now for the U.S. men's national team. Sebastian Berhalter, he set up the first goal. He scored the second. That should be a player in the U.S. men's national team right now. Incredible work from Jesper Sorensen, the Vancouver Whitecaps. Miami, can't count them out. Not with all that talent, not in the second leg at home, but the Whitecaps have a great advantage going on the road for leg 2. Let's talk about MLS this weekend. Atlanta will head down to Central Florida for a match against Orlando City. Pregame coverage will start at 6 o'clock on 92.9 The Game and the Audacy app. Abe Gordon, Madison Cruz from the Colony Square Studios. Mike Conti and I will take over in Orlando. Kickoff is set for 7:25 p.m., a little bit earlier start time. Game is also being broadcast on FS1, so a little bit different setup here. 7:15 for the broadcast start, 7:25 for the kick. Will we see goals? Atlanta hasn't scored in their last 2. Orlando hasn't scored in their last 3. 3 straight scoreless draws for Orlando. Pedro Galese has been great. Atlanta, we've got to see a response. It's been the word of the season so far, is response. We haven't seen it enough in side of matches. We need to see it here in a response to a poor performance in Philadelphia last week. Will we? We will all find out together on the radio. Hopefully you can join us. Miami, coming off of the 2-0 loss to Vancouver, they're still unbeaten in league play. They'll return home to host Dallas on Sunday. What do they have left in the tank? Dallas, very good on the road this season, 2-0-3. They have not lost away from Frisco, Texas. Vancouver, they got to go to Minnesota to face the Loons on Sunday. Minnesota's unbeaten at home so far this season. I wonder if Vancouver heavily rotates. They've rotated a lot this season, so it's not crazy for them to do that. But I wonder if they heavily rotate to be as fresh as possible for the CONCACAF semifinal next week. LAFC, they host St. Louis in the Sunday night soccer match in LA. 4 points in their last 2 matches for the black and gold. Denny Bouanga has scored in both of them. Olivier Giroud has finally scored for LAFC now. St. Louis haven't won in their last 5. They've been great defensively this season. They've only conceded 6 goals, but they've only scored 5. Does that change in this one? Can their defense keep them in it is going to be really the question, and can they steal something? I'm thinking no with the form that LAFC is in right now. Evander for Cincinnati. He's going to try to score in his 4th straight match. They host Kansas City in one of the early games on Saturday. Kansas City did win their first road match last week in San Jose in their last 12 attempts. They won a crazy 5-3 game out in California. Tied with Cincinnati at the top of the East is Charlotte. They host New England Saturday night. Charlotte's 5-0 at home this season. They've won 8 straight at home dating back to last September. Incredibly confident team right now. They should be able to keep that confident train rolling on against the Revolution. Columbus, they host San Jose on Saturday night. San Jose is trying to bounce back from conceding 5 goals at home to SKC last weekend. One other thing to keep an eye on, Andre Blake, if he gets a clean sheet against DC United on Saturday, he would become the 2nd fastest goalkeeper to reach 80 career shutouts in MLS history. Trailing only Brad Kazan, who reached the milestone in his 251st career regular season match. Blake would be the 9th goalkeeper in league history to get to 80 clean sheets. DC's coming in after a really good win last week. Philadelphia's coming in after a really good win last week. Should be a fun one on Saturday. Other news from around the world. The new World Sevens football series got your first 4 entrants. We've talked about this on the Espresso before. Ajax, Bayern, Benfica, and Manchester United will participate. The first event is going to be May 21st through the 23rd in Portugal. Games will be 7-a-side, 2 15-minute halves on fields half the size of a regulation pitch. You guys, a lot of you have played 7-a-side, so you kind of know what that'll look like. 8 women's teams are going to compete in this. You've got 4 already with Ajax, Bayern, Benfica, Manchester United. It's not exactly the same as Unrivaled, which was a huge success in its first season, but it's kind of along those lines in terms of a smaller-sided version of the game outside of normal league competition. I think the difference in this is you have your established teams and brands that are participating in this. I think there's a lot of potential to it. It's going to be fascinating. DAZN will stream the tournament globally. I'm very intrigued. I will want to check in on this and see how it looks. 4 more women's teams to be announced joining that tournament, and then there's going to be more events all over the world. The Friedkin Group, which owns Everton, they've added a new investor, Jason Kidd, Dallas Mavericks head coach. Huge Premier League fan, was previously involved in a bid to buy Crystal Palace. He's now part of the ownership group at Everton. Liverpool and Bayern, they can clinch their league titles this weekend, as has been expected for a while. Maybe the bigger surprise in teams that can clinch a trophy this weekend is Auckland FC. They only need a point to win the A-League regular season title in their first season, and it'll be the first New Zealand side to do that. The league does have a playoff structure, and we have seen teams come in their first year and win the regular season, but then they didn't win the grand final. Can Auckland FC get that done? We'll be watching. I'm intrigued by this one. Games this weekend. Copa del Rey final, Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's going to be at 4 o'clock on Saturday. Barca won the Super Cup earlier this year. They beat Real Madrid 5-2 in the final of that one. They're in charge with a 4-point lead at the top of La Liga over Madrid. Real Madrid have lost their last 3 meetings with Barcelona in competitive competition, so everything pointing towards Barca. With that in mind, Carlo Ancelotti, his name keeps coming up about other jobs. He's once again the front runner for the Brazilian national team job, according to ESPN Brazil. We've been talking about this for weeks now. He's the number 1 candidate. The federation is not ruling out Jorge Jesus as a contender either, though. Formerly at Flamengo, he is now at Al Hilal. He has a contract until after the end of the FIFA Club World Cup, but he could leave early to take Brazil. Brazil wants somebody in place for their qualifiers in June. They've got a cushion in terms of qualification for the World Cup, but it's not a big one. They want somebody in place for those June games. They're trying to get Ancelotti. Jorge Jesus is the backup plan. FA Cup semifinals this weekend, Crystal Palace and Aston Villa. Palace enter the fixture with a 4-game winless run, but they're unbeaten in 4 against Villa. Villa have won 5 of their last 6, but they have lost 6 of their last 8 trips to Wembley. I have no idea what those numbers tell you. That game sounds very strange because of those streaks. Nottingham Forest and Manchester City is the other match. The first one's on Saturday. City and Forest is on Sunday. City are on a 6-game unbeaten run in the Premier League. They've only lost 1 of their last 6 league encounters against Nottingham Forest, but that loss was last month. So we shall see if Nuno Espirito Santo's interesting style that we talked about earlier this week, a different way of playing low possession but not high pressing football, that has been working. Can it work against City? It did last month. We'll see if it works again this time around to get to an FA Cup final. Also, UEFA Women's Champions League semifinals, second legs this weekend. Chelsea trailing Barcelona 4-1 going into the second leg in London. Barca are trying to get to their 5th straight final and win their 3rd straight title. Lyon, who has been to a whole bunch of finals, they host Arsenal. They are leading 2-1. They got a late winner in London last time out. Looks like it will be Barcelona and Lyon, which would be an epic final. If you get an epic comeback from either Chelsea or Arsenal, that would add to the drama for that upcoming final next month. Looking forward to all of it this weekend. Looking forward to heading down to Orlando with Atlanta United. Again, broadcast starts at 6 o'clock on 92.9 The Game in the Audacy app. Kickoff is at 7:25. And we will be telling you the whole story from Inter & Co. Stadium. Thanks for listening and watching and reading all of our content this week. It's been a very busy week on the SDH Network. We don't get a chance to do any of this without you. So thank you for consuming it. Thank you for sharing it with your friends. Thank you for subscribing. And we will have plenty more until the next time I'm back with you for a morning espresso.